So, um, the other day I posted a video talking about my son Jacen. I didn't really get to tell my full story. I apologize. That day I hadn't had my anxiety medicine at that time, so when I don't, it makes it really hard for me to talk, especially about Jacen. I have post-traumatic stress disorder from when he passed away, and so I find it really hard to talk about. I get choked up and everything, so I kind of wrote everything down. At one point I wanted to write a book about my journey to recovery after losing Jacen and everything that we've been through. But the more I thought about it, I realized that I couldn't interact with the community that would be reading that book, so I decided instead to do YouTube videos. So I'm just going to read what I have wrote down. My name is Jessica. I had my oldest son June 22nd of 2012. Everything was perfect. We had sick times, a lot of nights spent awake, and so much more. When he was 2 years old, my husband and I decided to have another baby. Due to pregnancy complications and miscarriage, we decided after our son Jacen was born that I would have a tubal ligation surgery. Jacen McLean was born March 9th of 2015. Our family felt complete and we felt whole. On May 9th of 2015, our world would be turned completely upside down. I woke up to find Jacen still, unmoving, and not breathing. I immediately began CPR. I knew I could get him back. I just knew I could. While I performed CPR on him, my husband Jacen called 911. Within a matter of minutes, 2 police officers were at my house. I ran to them with Jacen in my arms, still continuing chest compressions, and somehow managed to fling the door open as well. We stood on our porch, watching helplessly. It seemed like forever for the ambulance to arrive. I remember jumping in the back of the ambulance. I remember thinking I couldn't leave him. One of the responding officers, BJ, pulled me out of the ambulance and told me I couldn't go with him, that I had to stay back and let them work on him. I can't remember what all he said at first exactly. I remember him talking and I just kept thinking, you don't understand, that's my son. I'm losing my son. You could never understand. I'll never forget his next words when he told me he knew exactly what I was going through because he watched his son lay in the back of that same ambulance. He told me, you have to let them work. They instructed me to go in and get dressed. I did just that and made as many rush phone calls as possible. Jose, the other responding officer, took me to the hospital while Justin took Anakin to hit Justin's dad's house for him to sit with his papa. I sat in the hospital with him just waiting. It seemed as if the whole world was just standing still. I kept praying, God, please don't take him. I don't care if he will be mentally or physically damaged or both. Just please don't take my son. Looking back, in a way, I am ashamed. If God would have answered that prayer, what kind of life would that have been for Jacen? I was selfishly putting myself, my need for my baby boy, ahead of what was best for him. It felt like ages before Justin got there, even though it wasn't. The whole time, I was gagging and choking on my own nerves. It felt like another lifetime before the doctor walked out. I, as Jacen's mother, knew my son was gone. I knew what was going to come out of that doctor's mouth as soon as I seen him come out. As he walked up to Justin and I, he held out his hand and began introducing himself. I think Justin knew as well. We both just looked at his hand as if it was some vile creature. I feel bad for this now. That man didn't deserve that. He had just give his all to try and save our son, yet the only response I had in me was disgust. It wasn't disgust towards him, it was disgust that Jacen was dead. We got brought back to the ER to say our goodbyes. Many officers showed up, some we knew, others we didn't, and some were there to proceed with an investigation. Anytime a child under 12 months old passes away in the state of Arkansas, they investigate it. The ones we knew were there to give us support, condolences, and so much more. We were told what would happen next and asked if we wanted to donate organs and tissue. When our answer was that we didn't know, we were told it would be one of the hardest decisions to make. It wasn't that we didn't know, it was just too much. Everything was happening too fast. One minute he was here, the next I'm getting asked 1,000,001 questions. We were overwhelmed with too many major decisions. My mind in a way shut down. I don't think I will ever get back to fully functional me. We waited at the hospital until the morgue came and got him and then went home. We went home without our entire family that morning. When we got home, we started making phone calls, and within a span of a few hours, our road was lined with cars. Jacen pulled me to the side and asked how I felt about donating his organs, and my reply was, if we can stop someone out there from feeling this, I want to do it. Over the next few days, that by far was our easiest decision. As soon as he got back from the state crime lab, or maybe before, I'm not sure which, his organs and tissue they could use was recovered. By the next day, he was back and taken to the funeral home. We then made the arrangements for visitation and his funeral. Everything from May 9th to about the 15th was and still is a blur. I know May 12th we had his visitation and May 13th his funeral, yet everything blended together. Like I said, my mind had shut down. The day of his funeral, I watched my husband and his cousin Ashby carry the smallest casket I ever cared to see again out our church doors to the back of the cemetery. I can't begin to imagine the mental strength it took from Jacen to carry our baby boy to his final resting place. There was a beauty in this horror, a statement from my husband's actions. That statement was that I, as Jacen's mother, carried him into this world, and he is Jacen's father. Not only carried Jacen to his final resting place, but a part of mine and Justin's souls as well. In those actions, it was a promise to also carry me when it all seemed to be too much. Without God, without Justin, without Anakin, I don't believe I could have recovered as far as I have, and a good therapist. When Jacen passed away, in a sense, the woman I was died with him. Every day is a struggle with myself. I'm now fighting anxiety and depression when I never had it before. I've come to realize without him, I don't like the woman I've become. God helps me with this, but I would give anything to have him back. I would give anything to be whole again. I would give anything. For the first month, my days blended. I couldn't tell you what day of the week it was. At one point in a phone conversation, I couldn't even remember my own birthday. My weeks turned to months. I had completely checked out. I would pray, usually almost every waking moment. I was tormented by the image of finding Jacen. It was burned into my mind. Every time I blinked or closed my eyes, that is what I seen. After many prayers, the image has been blocked from my mind for the most part, thankfully. In these months that blended together, I had this tiny sliver of hope. I knew I would wake up and Jacen would be home. It all was just a bad dream. It had to be. How could I go on otherwise? I waited for 2 months before we got his death certificate in. I didn't want to open it. I didn't want to read it. I didn't want it to say what I knew it would say. I didn't want him or us to become another statistic. I am human. I wanted answers, not more questions. When I read it, I was horrified to see the cause of death as sudden unexplained infant death syndrome. I was angry. How with all the tests they run, all the science and technology of this world, can they not tell me how or why my son died? I guess only God has the answers we seek. However, the human mind can be torment upon itself. I have gone over the 2 months of his life over and over again. I have gone over the days leading up to May 9th. I have envisioned everything that could have happened to him to only come up with a theory that could only be solved one way. And it is one thing I absolutely refuse to do. As much as I want answers, I could never have him exhumed. I have contemplated it many times, however. Losing my son is the worst thing that could ever happen to me. Every day I'm stuck in the hell of reality that is no more snuggles, kisses, just absolute nothingness. Instead of kissing him goodnight, I kiss a picture of him, a piece of paper. His clothes lost his smell about 2 weeks after he passed away. For 2 weeks I enjoyed smelling his clothes because that was the only part of him that still lingered. This whole time, my head has barely been floating above water. When it sinks, God, Anakin, and Justin pull it back up. In August of 2015, we took a small vacation. In a way, it was nice. It was nice to run away from it all. Only trouble with that is you can only run from your pain. You can't outrun your pain. It is always there. Ignore it all you want. It will always be there. After we got back is when I reached my breaking point. I would hide from Justin. In my mind, I thought if I hid from him, if I didn't tell him how I was feeling, then I couldn't make things worse for him. I was wrong. In trying to avoid hurting him more, I left him drowning. His words were that it is already as bad as it can get. Jacen isn't here. There is no more making that worse. He is right. There is no worse. Out of everyone in this world, he is the closest to understanding how I feel about losing our son. I say closest because no two people will ever feel the same exact way. No two people will love the same way, or grieve, or any of it. It is simply because there is only one me. Just as I am unique, so are my feelings and how I handle things. If you are listening to this because you are looking for the answers to healing, I don't have them. I can only tell you about my journey and hope it helps in some way or another, if only to assure you you aren't alone. Shortly after this discussion with Justin, I reached out for help. I needed help. I had so much building up on me. Where I believe our pain comes from is love. I feel all this love building up and nowhere for it all to go to. So it just builds and aches and longs for that vessel that once was. After starting therapy, it has helped in a way. It will never take my pain away. It will never bring Jacen back. I have a deeper longing for heaven than I ever had before. I have stated many times that God will have to have patience with me because I'm going straight to Jacen. I know Jacen is fine. I know he doesn't need me anymore. In all honesty, it is I that needs him. People say I'm getting better. They say I'm recovering well. They don't see the truth, though. I just get better at hiding it, at living with this constant raw aching inside of me, the blood-curdling screaming of my head. Most days I hide it, others it comes bubbling forth, oozing out of me in a non-stop flow of depression. Time does not heal anything. You just learn a little more each day to acknowledge the pain, to acknowledge it won't ever go away. It is now November, and the days seem to be blurring again. 6 months. 6 months has been too long without him. The holidays suck. Some people have stopped acknowledging I have 2 sons. Others still include Jacen. Everything is out of place. He should be crawling around, getting into everything. He should be chasing after Anakin. He should be eating his first solids, well, at least 2 months ago, starting small and working up. I should be hearing, are you still breastfeeding him? Aren't you going to cut him off at one? What do you mean you're going to breastfeed at minimum 2 years? Again? Instead, just like every day, I'm left with nothing. Yet again, stuck in my head, stuck in this hell. I ask myself daily, how do I go on without you? The answer is you just do. You push through. When everything seems to be too much, I try and just focus on my next breath and nothing else. It is amazing how your child can be so essential to your life. I still feel torn between my children. On one hand, Annie needs me just as I need him. On the other, I have a longing and a need for Jacen I can't shake. In a way, I can't wait until God calls my name. Sometimes my statement is misconstrued as suicidal. I'm not that. I won't do something to shorten my stay here. God has given me this path. I will walk it. It is just, in a sense, I have a longing for death because then I can have a part of me back that is missing, that has been absent for so long. I'm blessed that God has given me peace, the only peace available to a grieving parent. I will be with him again. Everything else, God just promises I don't have to walk through alone. As far as writing things down, that's as far as I'd gotten in my story. After Thanksgiving and all that passed was Christmas, and I remember watching Anakin open his Christmas presents and crawling into Justin's lap and hiding my tears from our son because it was a happy time for him. For me, I should have been watching 2 boys open presents. On Jacen's birthday, we did a little candlelight vigil and we set lanterns go. I tied a letter to some balloons and let them go. Mother's Day was even harder. Last year, Jacen passed away the day before Mother's Day. This year, Mother's Day was the day before he passed away. I wasn't ready to hear Happy Mother's Day, even though I'm still a mother to Anakin. I'm still a mother to Jacen. A part of me still isn't ready to be happy without him. Going on is hard, but it is possible. Cling to God and cling to your family. And people will tell you some of the dumbest things you have ever heard in your life. They will tell you, oh, you're still young, you can have another baby. Another baby will never replace what was lost, ever. For 2 months, I held him. For 2 months, he was mine. I just can't stop living in that 2 months. I hope something that I've been able to say has helped. God bless.